Greetings, friends. This is Elizabeth Schermer with an intuitive reading for the grids of light in anticipation of the total solar eclipse that occurs in Leo with our Leo new moon on Monday, August 21st. And the eclipse happens here in Pacific time at 11:30 a.m. A solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse, activates a unique aspect of consciousness for all of us. I'm going to say just a little bit about it, and then we'll dive into the reading behind me because that illustrates ways that we can understand and connect more deeply with what's happening. The sun ordinarily delivers unfiltered, unobstructed consciousness to all of us, and that's the golden light behind the Ace of Swords on the card behind me. The light of consciousness, the light of unification, the light of oneness, the light of the truth of who we are. And the sun is a star. We are stars. It's our light. The moon, working in partnership with the sun, receives that light and then distributes it to Earth and to each of us personally throughout the 28 days of each lunar cycle. So the moon allows us to receive the light in increments that we can use personally for our own growth and our own development and our own evolution. The moon is how we connect to our own inner processes of growth and understand growth for ourselves. When at the new moon, the moon and sun come together every month, and in the very rare cases when the moon completely exactly covers the face of the sun, what happens is a powerful shadow is activated. So the shadow of a solar eclipse is the activation of our inner light. It's a deep mystical truth that light is birthed from darkness. And our light and our awareness and our consciousness comes from the depths of our being, from the depths of source, and from the place and time before light exists. So when the moon covers the face of the sun, what is activated through the shadow on the highest level is the opportunity for us to connect with the truth of what shadow really is, which is not the parts of ourself we reject. The true shadow is the truth of who we are and our strength and courage and willingness to claim that truth and to surrender the aspects of personality that limit us and limit our beliefs and limit our understandings of who we are and what is possible in our life. So the shadow activation of solar eclipse on the highest level is an activation of the truth of who we are. I'm getting hot as I'm talking about it. I don't know if you can see, my face is red. I just broke out in a sweat. And I will say this is super deep. It's hard to talk about. I started crying the first couple times I did this message. That may happen again because it's also very emotional. We're connecting with the deepest truth of who we are. And it's evident in the world around us. The activation of shadow right now is a healthy, even if it's uncomfortable and super painful, excruciating to experience. The activation of the shadow around us is the activation of the truth of who we are. And what's being activated in this country is the activation of the shadow elements that lurk beneath the surface, the shadows of racism, the shadows of white supremacy, the shadows of the extermination of the indigenous peoples of this land. All of that must be unearthed in order for us to truly claim the truth of who we are as individuals and also as a collective, to expand and to move forward in our journey together as a human family. So we are being challenged right now, and we all feel it in deep ways. The underlying message of this challenge is a message of hope and a message of truth and a message of potential and possibility. And the potential and possibility lies in our ability to claim responsibility fully for the shadow. And that shadow is in each of us, and it's in our collective. It's evident all around us, and it's where our power lies. So there's no coincidence that this total lunar eclipse that's happening shore to shore in the United States to activate our shadow, to enable us to move forward and to bring this healing forward for the entire world. The eclipse is happening in the new moon in Leo, which is the card strength, Lust card, which is the card of embracing shadow. This is a card that teaches us about the fire, the truth of our own fire, and the truth of claiming our fire, of claiming all of our fears. One of the teachings that we work with this card is to fully embrace and recognize the manifestation of what we call undeviating justice in all the circumstances of our lives. And that undeviating justice is the ability to take full responsibility for our own circumstances, to release judgment of all other people, and to claim responsibility for ourselves. Now, releasing judgment doesn't mean we release accountability. We must hold ourselves and each other accountable for our actions. And so it's complex, it's full of paradox, and it's a time when we must hold compassion for ourselves and for each other in this journey and own the truth that's being evidenced and own our part in it. So, knowing all of this, knowing the activation of shadow and the activation of huge potential in the gift of this solar eclipse, I asked for an astrology reading, a tarot reading that would help us understand some of these potentials. And what I want to say about the astrology chart before I read the cards, is that the chart of the eclipse is in the configuration of a kite, which indicates an overarching harmony and integration and stable liftoff that will enable those of us who can step into this quality of shadow with the eclipse. It will enable us to participate more collectively in this greater adventure that is opening before us. It's going to enable us to understand and perceive our shadow in another way and to connect with the deep internal truth within that is the abyss, the darkness that is the container for all of the light. So, the spread for today, the spread for the full moon, the new moon eclipse. The first card, Four of Wands completion. The Four of Wands completion is indicating an integration and a willingness in our circumstances and in our life and in our internal consciousness to bring forward the past and to do what we need to do to show up to our lives and our circumstances from internal power. And in doing that, we bring forward the past in the wheel indicates an integration of consciousness that enables us to move forward and to birth new beginnings and new potential. So there's a quality of integration, a quality of showing up, a quality of courage. Four of Wands is fire. And there's a way in which the eclipse is going to give us new consciousness and insight and ability to create an integration even in the midst of what's being dismantled. I'm going to jump over the Ace of Swords to the Hanged Man in the position of spirit and say that this card is what brought me to tears in a deep way of appreciation when I was working with the message myself earlier today, because I don't know if you can see, but in the crown of the Hanged Man, the crown, you see the radiating light out of his head, which references the Ace of Swords in the position of awareness, moves into the coiled serpent hidden beneath the surface. And this serpent is a direct reference to the wisdom of the Strength Lust card, because the Hebrew word for this path and tree of life is semech, which is serpent. And this represents the inner wisdom and knowledge that we hold within. It's the ability to connect with what we perceive as darkness and claim the strength and the wisdom there. The serpent represents truth, and actually one of the names for serpent, for semech, in one of the attributions of semech and serpent is inner light. So think of this darkness as the inner light, and all the activations of shadow in your life and what you see around the world as an activation of wisdom, an opportunity to see clearly what we have, that which we've been hiding from, so that we can reintegrate, so we can claim it and reintegrate the opportunities for healing. Our souls are calling us forward. A solar eclipse on the most practical level represents an activation of our connection to our soul. That's what's being represented here by the Hanged Man in spirit. On the transcendent level, all of the sun at the top hanging from the Ankh, which is a symbol of eternal life, and divine feminine, the higher meaning of the Hanged Man is an evolutionary step in consciousness, an ability to be turned upside down and see the world in new ways and have new understandings and elevated expansions, to be able to let go of whatever holds you, that everything falls out of your pockets when you turn upside down. So know that at the highest level, this card is representing the ability to release the past, whatever holds us back, so that we can step into a new and more elevated understanding of reality. And we are being supported absolutely by Source and Spirit, and most of all our higher selves, which is what we are, whom we are connecting to now. The card in the center, Ace of Swords, actually came up reversed. And I usually turn cards over once I figure out the reversal, but I'm going to put it in its reversed position now and talk a little bit about it. The reversal of the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords is illuminated awareness and understanding, and you can see the crown coming up off of the ace. As I said, that crown is indicated in the Hanged Man as well, and this is the crown of new insight and understanding, the inspiration of expanded consciousness that we received at the lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, and the new age into which we're all moving collectively. In the reversal, in this case, the Ace of Swords is representing the darkening of that illumination at the eclipse and the ability to take that light within. So it's specifically addressing the existence of our inner light and our ability to connect with it, and to use the sword of knowledge and insight and confidence and strength to choose inner truth. There is a progressive splitting of the paths in our world. We're very aware and witnessing it, and the job that we're all showing up for, that we all have the opportunity to show up for, is to do the work of committing to whatever truth is, and together to committing to inner truth and finding it and doing the personal work necessary to make that happen. So inner light, it's there, and it's underneath all the perceived darkness and stagnation. It's there, and we are helping each other, and we're doing it. This is a beautiful message, and I want to give you the punchline now because I drew a couple more cards. The next card, as I always do for extra information, is always very clear, and I was curious what the universe would have in store. So I drew 3 additional cards right off the top. First one, 3 of Cups, a reminder that we get to choose. We may not be able to choose our circumstances, but we get to choose how we respond to them. And the power here lies in our choice of our frequency and our choice of staying in our hearts. And this was emphasized because the 3 of Cups came up, and then the next card was the 4 of Cups. So moving from the choice to remembering that we have a choice of how we respond from our heart, to stay in our heart and choose our heart. The 4 of Cups, abundance, refers to, or luxury, refers to a fulfillment, a sense of emotional strength. And the luxury is in the strength and the beauty of the perfection that we see, the beauty even in the midst of tragedy and difficulty, and the mystery of what we don't always understand. There's an underlying trust in the strength and the support of love, which is the glue that holds the universe together. So on the highest level, these 2 cards together are representing the need for us to trust in the glue of love, the force of love, and choose to align with it. And then one more card, and check this out, the last card, our friend Lust. So this is a powerful affirmation, and yes, this card was the next one in the pile. I didn't go in and look for it. It's a powerful affirmation that we are indeed completely being held and cared for, and this is the journey that we signed up for, and we are on the path. And the signature of the astrology chart of the kite absolutely indicates our ability now to show up and transcend to a new level of consciousness, a new level of collective fire and courage and confidence and vitality. in this, in the worlds we are participating in building. So if you're interested in more about the actual astrology of the eclipse chart, I recommend going to seattleastrology.org where you can read about it. And I wish you an amazing, amazing eclipse. This is very much an inner process. It's very much an inner ceremony. I recommend that you set time aside for yourself in the next days and honor the sacred nature of who you are and the beauty of what you are here to bring to the world. Thanks very much for listening, and have an amazing eclipse.